want to expose how the demons of addictions work and how they operate so that you can notice them when they're moving and they're activated in your life, and you could just be less likely to fall for the traps and tricks and stuff like that. And then I'm going to give you some tips on how to break their power and how to move past them. Okay? So let's begin. You know, demons, I've said it on other videos, they work with feelings and emotions. So right off the back, you know, there's always they work with imaginations as well. So one thing holds hands with the other. So, and I'm speaking from experience of what they used to do to me. And so late at night, I used to be in my bed, and then they would show me what they wanted me to do. So I saw a clip of how to come up, and let's say, oh look, you could do this and this and this, and then you'll get this result. And I was off to the races right after I saw that clip. But the reason why I was off to the races is because there was a feeling accompanied there that was going to be gratifying, fulfilling, satisfying. The feeling was that, like, oh, if you do this, this is what you're going to get. Now, I did it enough times to understand that this is the opposite of what it gives me. You know, I always woke up the next day with regret, shame, and guilt. But the promise has nothing to do with the delivery. See, because the devil's the father of lies, the great deceiver. So, you know, I just wanted to state the obvious that he's trying to destroy you. So, again, like, he uses your emotions and all that. Now, there's a difference between being possessed, okay? Possessed means that that person really doesn't have a choice in the matter. You know, for the most part, the demon is running that person's life. The demon wants to jump, that person's going to jump because the demon runs that person's life. Right? I, before I was saved, was possessed severely. So obviously, for me, have you ever been in a situation where you want to go right but you go left? There's just things that you always end up somewhere that you don't want to be. You're a captive. You're a slave. You're not in control. You're not behind the wheel, because if you were, you would be in a different destination. You would be where you want to be. You know, that's a sign. For example, I used to push away the people that loved me, and I used to embrace the people that were no good for me. That's backwards thinking. That's backwards. But on the internal, on the inside, that's not what I wanted. That wasn't really me. I didn't want that. But there was something else that was at play in my life that was spiritual, invisible, but very, very real. And those things would manifest themselves every now and again. I remember my little cousin came to my mom's house when I used to live there back in the day. And one time, I was just in the room. I was standing up. I was doing something with the fish. I used to have a fish tank back then. And one fish, all my other fishes died because I didn't tend to them. One fish was left, and the water was about this big, and he was just swimming around in the water. And I was very irresponsible. I didn't care about nothing but myself. So, but I was looking at the fish, kind of, super high kind of thing. And then when I remember my little cousin came, he looked at me. He started to cry, and he got scared and ran away. And then, I didn't chase him or nothing like that. But the next day, I remembered it. I said, "Hey, I saw you, but you ran away from me. Why'd you run away?" I'll never forget. Like, he looked at me sober, like he wasn't on drugs or nothing like that. But what I mean by sober, it's like his eyes were wide awake, like very open. He's like, "Mike, that was not you. Like, who I saw yesterday in that room, the eyes that you had when you looked at me." I said, "Who the heck?" It scared me. those are not your eyes. Like, those are the devil's eyes. Like, he scared them. So, um, what I mean to say is that at that particular point in time, I was possessed. So those things were running my life. That would show me imaginations. That would show me, and they have powers as well. They use different powers, and the powers is what makes you do what they want you to do. And so, all of this is broken at the cross of Jesus Christ. Right? But in order to get it broken, you have to go through a lot of phases and stages, a lot of shrubs and wilderness. Because the thing about that is that the demons, they do a lot to try to get in the way of your salvation. They do a lot to detour you, to distract you. You know, before I ever got saved, I recall them giving me a lot of fear about, going to church. About they gave me, and when I say a lot of fear, I mean like paralyzing type of fear, like don't go, and this and that. And sometimes I would listen and not go, like I would stay home, even though in the inside, like I knew it was right for me to go, because in the internal, I knew church is a safe place. I don't know why I'm so scared to go to church. Why am I so scared to go to church? It doesn't make any sense, except that it was me. And they would tell me things like Jesus is evil, Jesus is bad, don't go to him, and this, and don't even say his name. As I was approaching the cross, as I was getting closer to the Lord, these things got more irritated, more uncomfortable. But their uncomfortability made, because they lived inside of me, I I was like, I'm super uncomfortable, right? I didn't know how to distinguish them from me. And as far as I was concerned, that was me. I didn't know the difference. And that's what they do. That's what they use. So all this stuff that you hear about mental illness and all this split personalities and people identifying as things and other types of genders and this and that. Well, that there you go. That's what it is. And my testimony, it touches. It's like it's that. It's like the movie of my testimony is a person, like I said, that embraced his enemies and pushed away the people he loved because there was a demon doing it. A person that had split personalities. I myself was diagnosed bipolar as one of the things, and schizophrenic, meaning I had voices in my head, right? And the voices in my head drove me nuts. Okay, I had because they weren't just having conversations with one another, and the conversations are the same type of conversations that you and I would have if we were at a bus stop or somewhere else. They were meaningless. But when they're going on in your head, you're like, what's going on with me? Like, who the heck is talking in my head? And it really, and when you amp up the volume and you put the volume, the conversation is super loud. At one point, that's how it was for me. And for me, the way I coped with that was I had to go and pop a bunch of pills, drink a bunch of liquor or beer or whatever, and then the voices would hush up. That was how I dealt with that for a long time. But when I woke up, it was torture all over again, torment all over again. And so the way I also dealt with that is that I would sleep a lot, and it hurt me to wake up. When I would wake up, I would wake up to misery. And so everything about my existence was these demons that were in my life, making my life a living hell, like literally. So as I tried to venture out and see different avenues of helping myself, I did a lot of pit stops before I ever got to Jesus. Because I didn't know anything. For me, it was just like, what's gonna work? what is it that's going to work? Now, Jesus would pay me subtle visits here and there. And for some reason or other, I found a Christian channel, even in my darkest days, and I was hurled into watching Joel Osteen. I understand Joel Osteen has a bad rap, and this and that. I was in darkness. I was oppressed. I was depressed. I was hopeless. I was alone. Okay? And so many other things that I'm not mentioning. But I'm painting a picture of a boy. I wasn't even a man. Because even though I was old, beyond 18, 19, 20, I was a boy. Like, irresponsible, leeching off of mom, like insecure, all this other stuff. Like, I didn't know anything, right? So I consider that being a boy. So these demons, they're really doing a number on me, to the point where I lost my identity. I got wrapped up in the whole thug gangster thing. And then after that, they did a number on me in such a way where I lost myself in all the darkness and all the doom and gloom. And I didn't know I was gonna end up here, guys. I just ended up here, but basically, as they did that, the only way for me to cope was more drugs and more alcohol, But like I had mentioned, Joel Osteen, I would watch him, some other pastors there, and that would make, for me, it just showed me, when I would watch him, it inspired me. It brought positivity in my life, and in a life that had no positivity, that was the very little positivity I had. And then at nighttime, I would also listen to Christian music. So yes, I was completely lost in darkness, headed towards hell. But unbeknownst to me, the things that were going on in my life, God was setting me up. Just by watching these little shows and listening to Christian music, it was depositing seeds into me. So by the time I got saved and all that, like, I had a good amount of knowledge of God already by that point, because I was living in a very spiritual world where it made me pay attention to what was right in front of me. And so I got to know the dark side very, very well. And then God was presenting himself. And then I started to get to know God. And what the devil kept doing all throughout the beginning of everything was he kept trying to make himself bigger than God. He kept trying to emphasize that I should fear him rather than God, and that he had the power to destroy me and this and that. And so the devil, for a period of time, was ruling over my life. And I'll never forget, there's these defining moments that people go through in their existence when they're looking for God. God will put them in a crossroad to where they have to choose. Like, fine, you've been pursuing me long enough. You say you want me, and then it's a defining crossroad moment to where you're either going to choose God or you're going to continue to choose what you've been living in for the past 15 years. And that it's that moment that God's giving you the backdoor exit, saying, if you choose me, I'll get you out of this. And if you decide to cower it out, you're going to remain. And my uncle, which was somewhat of a father figure to me. He also did drugs, and he told me his testimony when I was in the world. And he told me that he had that defining crossroad moment, and he chose to leave it because I was inquiring, asking him, "How did you leave? This thing got me. Like, how do you leave?" And he said, "Mike, there will come a point where you're at a crossroads, and you will know that that's your defining moment, that you have to choose, right?" So for me, the defining moment came when I met my girl, and I was engaged to her, and I asked her to marry me, and basically one day I copped a bag, and I thought she was dipping to her parents' house, and she ended up staying, and it twisted my plans because I was gonna do it behind her back. But when she decided to stay, I was just like, man, my hookup is outside. And she saw the whole transaction, and that was my crossroad moment. And she told me, I saw you, I know what you just got, and I just want you to know I'm not gonna marry you. I'm not gonna do this life with you if that's what you're gonna be all about. And it was a defining moment because she asked me to sit down outside. Now, my nose is dripping, my feet are twitching, my mind is racing, my heart is racing, and I'm like anxious to do this drug. That's how bad it was for me. And I'm like, at this point, like, what do you have to say? I don't care what you have to say. Like, hurry up so I can go. That was my attitude mentality. And she's like, just sit down for a moment. I know you want to do it. Just sit down for a second. And I was like, okay, hurry up. And remember when I told you I used to listen to Joel Osteen and Christian music and all that? I was in darkness as a complete sinner. But I had all these seeds being deposited in me, so I had known some knowledge of God. So when I met my wife, I was telling her a lot about God. I would take her to church here and there. Nothing serious, but we would go to church here and there. And I would talk to her about God. And she was actually headed in the wrong direction, wanting to get baptized in voodoo when I met her. That's another testimony. But, so she tells me, sit down. And so she says to me, you're always telling me about God. You're always talking to me about God. And I nod. I said, okay, yeah, and she said, so why are you holding the devil's hand? Choose God or the devil. You can't have both. And that was my crossroad moment. That was my crossroad. With sweaty palms, a fast heartbeat, she put me on the spot. Because up to that point, I was head over heels about going to the bathroom and doing this thing that I just bought. So she put me on the spot. She said, choose God or the devil. You can't have both. And that I chose God. Obviously, here we are. So I said, no, I choose God. I said to her, and I started to drop tears. I said, you think I want to do this? I said, I'm a slave to this. This thing has me. I said, how many times I've wanted to quit. I can't quit. I've been to rehab 3 different times. This thing has me. And I said, but I choose God. I don't. And so we went to the bathroom, to the toilet. Now this is an action that I had done many times before. I had done this before, okay? Because like I said, I was trying to quit for a long time. And but this was a defining moment in my life. It was highlighted as an eternal moment that was being witnessed by heaven and hell as well. Everybody was watching this moment because God was in this moment. So I was in the bathroom and I opened up the bag of Coke and I put it down the toilet. I saw the white dust in the water there, And I flushed the toilet, and then I threw the bag on the floor, and I stepped on it, and I said, just like Archangel stepped on your head, Archangel Michael stepped on your head, so do I step on your head, devil. And I put my foot on it. I started to step on that bag, and I grabbed the bag, and I threw it in the toilet. I flushed the toilet, and I was drained. I was drained. I have no energy after that. It took everything out of me to do that. It was a roller coaster of emotions and feelings. You know, and a lot of adrenaline, a lot of all that stuff. So after that, I was drained. I went to sleep. I went to bed. That was 10 years ago. I woke up. I didn't have any desire for anything else ever again. I was free. 10 years ago, that moment happened. The next day, I was not the same person. Same shell, nothing changed on the outside. But on the inside, there was no withdrawals, there was no fiending, there was no sweaty clams, hands. I'm talking about, hey, you know where you're gonna be in 5 minutes, I'll meet you there. No, none of that. I didn't want it anymore. I didn't need it anymore. And when the devil would try to, like remind me of that, I recalled how he used to play those games with me when I was in the world. I recalled how this is a tactic, this is a weapon, this is how he uses people, this is how he does things. And he uses people, and he uses places to trigger you, and he uses things to remind you. And so I started to become extra sensitive to everything I would do. I was just like, you know what? You have no idea, okay? You have no idea the torture and torment that I went through. And the fact that I was free now, you could put a shotgun to my face and say, sniff this, or I'll shoot you. And I'll say, I'll cock the gun for you. I'll do it for you. I'm not sniffing that. So that's my testimony, and that's how I broke addiction. So that's the end of the testimony. God bless you guys.